All right, everybody. Tristessa.
Hey everybody, thank you for the warm welcoming. I appreciate it. We're going to pick up from where we left off yesterday, talking about my journey to Duck Duck Key, which I personally believe started from the day I was born. You might be thinking, what in the hell, how is that even possible? Well, we'll start with training camp. Everybody's familiar with training camp? So my upbringing was a lot like training camp. Training camp in the sense of if you need to learn about mental health issues, suicidal ideation, alcoholism, substance abuse, domestic violence, it goes on. That was my upbringing. And I can say I'm very grateful for all that today because it has given me a lifetime of ability to be there for others when other people cannot. And many more great rewards that coming up like that gave to me. I've been able to overcome quite a bit of it. Part of the nerves you see is exactly that. It is just part of how I'm wired. General anxiety comes from a lot of violence in the home, and that is who I am and what I am. But we're going to get past that today. We're going to talk a lot more about the journey than me. So, with that, we're going to try to click, but that's okay. By the time I was 13, I had seen more, experienced more, and made friends with lots and lots of police in my life. By the time I was 15, I was diagnosed with PTSD. Now referred to more, in my case, as complex PTSD, because we're talking about years and years in duration of repeated trauma. So that was a good makeup for where my life would go. As you can imagine, with those types of experiences, your perspective of the world is a little different. You may think about things differently. You may perceive things differently. All of that applies. But that's to say, there were some really great moments in life. I was a cheerleader. I was a straight A student. I played the bassoon. I played the piano. And I was able to make friends and find mentors. Without those mentors, I would not be standing here alive today. That's for sure. So began to think about school. Didn't really have a plan to go to college. All I knew to do was work. Work my way out of the situation, work my way out of the state, work my way far away from wherever I could. With that said, by some grace of God, I got into the school because I did not have the best graduating GPA. I did straight A's up until I had to change school about 4 or 5 times when I was in high school. So I managed to get into a school and pursued what I knew, which was to become a worker in the social services field. Started out as a aftercare counselor for delinquent youth. Thank you for my brother. He gave me a great model on how to help and what to do. But I started out as an aftercare counselor for delinquent youth. Then I went into drug and alcohol and became a residential counselor in a drug and alcohol center for teenagers in trouble. With that, I moved from that to work with the severely mentally ill adult population in Alamogordo, New Mexico. Has anybody been to Alamogordo, New Mexico? Not many people have. There is a belief that because they were doing the Trinity test, bombing and so forth, and all the testing in the mountains, that it trickled into the water, and that's why there's such a significant population of people with severe mental health issues in Alamogordo. But anyway, that was the beginning to then starting my career. Not long into my career, I did realize that I was perpetuating, and with the help of my father too, he was reminding me, why are you still perpetuating what you always knew? It got me curious. I thought, what else can I do with that type of background, with those types of experiences, and in particular, the kind of lens that I have on the world? What could I really do more and beyond? I had no clue. I had no idea. But I was curious. So I went back to school, fortunate to get my master's degree in, well, it was a blend. It was human resources and management. Grace of God, I was able to graduate doing that and work in several jobs. But from there, I left social services and I went into a career field that was a blend of sales, business development, advertising. You heard a little bit about that yesterday. Eventually landing with a hospice program, which was a really great balance for me. My wheelhouse became strategic planning right off the bat. And I really, really enjoyed the idea of fulfilling and serving a mission, but doing it from a desk. At that point in time in my life, I needed to be there needed to be some distance between care and for. So as we talked about yesterday, We're gonna go back one.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. As we talked about yesterday, around the same time that I started working for the hospice is when I was leaving advertising, went to work for the hospice, met the lady that mentioned her fishing company that she was coming up with. Again, Hurricane Ivan had struck Pensacola, and we needed to figure out how to feed our people. We had no electricity, no water for weeks and weeks and so forth. So joined Fish and Chicks, the adventure of Fish and Chicks. We actually started doing tournaments around the U.S., raising funds for not-for-profits. At the time, our focus was hospice, because hospice that we all work for and we're on the board of was a not-for-profit. So again, there we are at the Today Show. That was just a really cool coincidence. I think somebody knew somebody that knew somebody that got us there. So here I am from where I came from, suddenly on the Today Show. Most of my family lives in Brooklyn, New York, or in Merrimack, or around town up in New York. So it was pretty cool to say, hey guys, check it out, I'm gonna be downtown. That was awesome. So from there, again, we were doing tournaments, and the word was out that we were a bunch of chicks that like to fish. And we ended up getting asked to come to other areas to hold tournaments, to raise awareness. And at the time, it was just an untapped market. The business decision there was nobody was marketing to women and fishing at the time. So we had fun. It was a blast. That eventually led to, again, I bought the company in 2016 and tried to restart the company. We were primarily a merch company at the time, way back when. I was not equipped to do merchandising by myself, so I said, you know what, maybe I'll just fish this time. And that's exactly what I did. I got super lucky. The boat you see behind me is a boat that I fished on 150 miles out and caught my first and only marlin. But I was eventually asked to join the Boyer Hookup Weekend in Pensacola, which is where they fly in Boyers and take them fishing for a couple days and do some cathartic events, dinners, and so forth. And basically any kind of recreation outdoor. The name of the group was American Heroes Enjoying Recreation Outdoors. So we went fishing, and have to say, somebody caught my eye during this whole adventure of fishing here. He was a little MacGyver badass. I saw him fixing things on the boat. Nobody would even ask, very quiet, kept to himself. But then one day I saw him take off on his incredibly beautiful Harley that was all kind of glitter green with the giant American flag hanging off the back. And I'm like, I gotta know that guy. So I did. I got to know that guy pretty well. He was going through a divorce. He was medically discharged and lost who he was, had no clue who he was, no idea what he wanted to do. His 2 children were taken away from him. He couldn't go see them. So as you can imagine, what happened? Social worker Tristessa shows up. Now, I never was a social worker. I should not take credit for that. Social services Tristessa, with my background, heard somebody in need. Somebody that had some problems going on, and I just wanted to see what I could do to help. And I was immediately gravitating towards that tornado, which is why the picture you saw earlier is what you'll see here. We essentially, no, that's not that one, sorry, go back. Yep, that one. So between fishing and meeting this individual, I did end up spending 4 years. He basically handed the keys over to his demons and said, drive the bus, I'll get on and see what happens. So as we were riding along with these demons for several years, I can say that it was a beautiful time. It was also a very challenging time with a good ending to it, thank God. But all that to say, it was a good example of time with someone who is fighting their demons and not sure what to do with them. From this perspective, staying up all night, waiting for somebody to come home, waiting to hear some tailpipes on the motorcycle somewhere close, and you don't hear them, and you don't hear them for days. Sometimes you log that they've been up for 14 days and sleep for 3 or 4 if you're lucky straight. So it was an adventure for sure. His demons definitely were driving the bus, but I don't think we'll have time for this, and that's okay. This is a great video. January 2022 is when he did come to me and say, I'm done. The demons need to stop being in control. Help me get out of this. Yeah, it is actually playing, but volume's a whole other story here. Does it come up?
I can hear.
His message is great. That's okay. We don't have to see it. We'll call him Doc. He was a medical sergeant in the Army, but it's a great message. He talks about. That's okay. He talks about carrying a gun There wasn't a day that would go by you wouldn't see him with 2 guns strapped here, probably one in his boot, and a variety of other weapons on him at all times. In this video, which is actually taken in August of 2022, he talks about he no longer carries a gun. And he also talks about it wasn't for protection. It was so he knew he could take care of things if he had to, meaning take care of himself at any given time. So this video is great. He's speaking to a bunch of warriors during the hookup. He had been a participant for year after year. That year he was there to tell his story finally. That was pretty awesome. What's really cool after that is this is my same year, 2022, November 2022 is when I got hired at WWP. I knew where I wanted to be, what I wanted to continue to do. Didn't know exactly how I was going to do it or with what entity I was going to be able to work with. But lucky for me, in November 2022, he's clean. I get a job here at WWP. And this is, I always wanted my name in lights. It's my last name, but that's okay. So I always wanted my name in lights. This is the guy that picked me up at the Jacksonville airport when I came in for my interview. So lessons I learned on my journey to WWP all along in my life. Always believe you can do it, believe you can overcome, never give up, and keep on keeping on.
11 minutes even.
That looks like magic.
I don't know if you heard that, 11 minutes even?
Oh, thank you.
Yep, 11 minutes even.
She was 6. 7.
Good job. All right, Sue, 7.
Great.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. One of the things I noticed, I think in the beginning, you first off, like 10 minutes is just like like a mark. Like had we had the option to go longer, I think you would have like slowed your speed down. But in the beginning, you were like a little bit quick. But that shit doesn't even bother me because you did something that was very powerful and it goes empathy, at least for me. You own your narrative. So like right off the bat, like you're like, okay, I'm nervous, I'm this, that shit's out the window, you can see it, and then like as soon as you like settle into it, it's like fucking great. You like change your pace, everything like that, you only like picked up, and you got like the time keys and stuff like that. You did a good job staying in there. You like talk through the technical difficulties or whatever, and super powerful, amazing story. And I'm super proud of you for being vulnerable with just 6 hours a week or so. I thought you kicked ass.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I got it.
I thought you did a really good job because we practiced and it was much shorter. So,
4 minutes.
so yeah, you found 4 minutes worth of meaningful content, which was great to hear. I definitely could feel the nervousness in the very beginning, but throughout the whole thing, it just kind of wasn't there after like the first minute to 2 minutes for me. So I thought it was good.
I kind of have to go with what Carlos said a little bit. Like I noticed in the beginning, you like, you touched on like this childhood bit. And you're like, all right, next. And I was kind of like, is this like we're going back? Like I guess my head like we're going back to this. We're just following the play, and it kind of showed itself later. But at first, I was like, okay, is it because she's nervous? She's going to be more comfortable talking about it, things of that nature. But then it actually like played out. So, but overall, I was definitely like engaged. Like I was more like, what's next? I think that's like maybe that initial bit came up. You gave us like a little bit, and you gave something else. Like okay, where is all this going? So you're ready.
Thank you for a great message overall. I appreciate that very much. And I don't have a lot to add relative to what folks have said, but it just your confidence increased as you went along, which is, I think, probably something that we're all hoping to capture. So on that front, good job. Thank you.
Same, very powerful message. And what I really liked is, you're going along the timeline, like Anthony was saying, and then all of a sudden, like, okay, 2017, and rate posted up to B, and then like, wham! And then that comes back from your past experience and that nature that you have inside you to be a helper and a fixer, and so that was very moving. Thank you.
Definitely love your story. I I love that you were able to share that story because I know I can see that it means so much to you. And in the practice, you went 4 minutes, so I was like, when you were talking, I was like, whoop, she added a lot of detail in there. And it flowed really good. Just take your time and, take your pauses. But it was really awesome.
For not wanting to be vulnerable, I think you shared an extremely vulnerable story, so that's great. That like really challenges you, and I absolutely loved it. I really thought you were going to show a picture of being married to that dude. I don't know.
I didn't
I
know
didn't
you
share, but I was waiting for it. But it was great.
Yeah, excellent job. Easy to follow along with, easy to connect with throughout the whole.
Like everyone says that for it being your weakness as you think, I think it's actually maybe one of your strengths, whether you realize it or not, that vulnerability that is, it's like subtle, but at the same time, it's super impactful, and it's lovely.
And to echo what I know a lot of people have said too, that vulnerability, way to just jump in with 2 feet with it, because like that, it was so important to your story too. And like, yes, of course we're nervous, and I mean, I'm sure even more so with like having that vulnerable story and putting it on the stage like that. Obviously, like I think we'd all be nervous too, but you nailed it.
Yeah, I think I'm sitting back here trying to like frame how to say and what to say to you, to be honest with you. And I think there's 2 really important things I want to say. First of all, just the fact that you got up and like went like that, and that's the strength. I mean, I've like, it's like I'm looking at like Superwoman, like that, where you just, hey, I'm gonna do this, and you got up and did it, and it's like, that's incredible. There's 2 kinds of people in the world. There's the people that go through things and learn through experience, and then there's a type of person who has to learn from somebody else's experience. And I believe that, just in my personal faith, I just believe that we're put on the earth to be, some of us are put on the earth to be that person that goes through things, because we're going to save somebody else's life, because we can share what we went through and we can talk about it, and somebody will be able to learn from because if they'd have gone through it themselves, they wouldn't have made it. But they're going to learn from what we said and learn from our story. And that's what's going to save them, save their life, or say whatever. And so like the importance of what you just did by sharing your story, and the importance of any time you share your story is you're opening the door and like empowering somebody else to get that piece of strength that they need so desperately. You're that link that they need. And so your opening was amazing, because you just threw us into this vulnerability at the beginning. We're like, okay, this is gonna be like, okay, all right, this is gonna be, big. Audience participation, I think you did it twice, or you referred to, or you asked a question to the audience, to like, we were right there with you, and it made it more of like a circle versus kind of a back and forth. And then the moment where you said stepping into social services, Tristessa, and you took that step and you stepped into her, and I was like, oh, she did it. So that was really cool. I'm sure there's other things that Dan's going to mention as well. This was just really, I'll be honest, this is really hard to critique, because I'm watching you and I'm like, crap, I got to take notes. You just pulled us in. Great job.
Once again, I'll be repetitive in the sense that I love it when the points that I write down have already been touched. I mean, that says something in itself, that people are learning and listening and watching and picking up on things. Vulnerability and strength equally are very hard to do on a stage, and you did it. You showed both sides of the fence, and that is not an easy thing to get to. Especially for, I don't know if you speak in the past or you've done this. I have a feeling you have a little bit here and there, but it came through. And talking about a subject so personal, and I could feel it coming out when you started mentioning about this. I saw this guy, good looking, green machine, here we go, and then the demons. And then I just let it go, and I got on the bus for the ride. And I was really worried. I was actually worried at that moment, where what's going to happen. Is the bus going to crash? Are you guys going to live happily ever after? And so I was so involved in that and so hooked into it but you were talking real, you were talking your life. And not to mention going all the way back to when you were a kid and you were suffering through, as you stated, post-traumatic stress disorder, but it's multifactorial for different things that occurred in your life. You did 4 minutes, you said, when you practiced? And this time you were at 11 even, right? Yeah. So you about 11 even this time, and you talked and you used a lot of paralanguage, but you also were very, I'm not gonna say real fast, but you didn't take a lot of pauses. And I'll tell you, once again, time is time. It's gonna happen. I've missed my mark on time more than I've ever made it, to be honest. But I'm gonna get the message across. And if I take an extra minute to do it and you're so upset about that, well, I'm sorry. But my message is more important than your clock. And the world isn't gonna end if I'm 60 seconds longer than you want me to be. So, having that pause, taking that breath for a second and letting it sink in, I think is a good thing for you to do as well. Eye contact was awesome, and taking a bad situation and putting humor in it. You managed to do that. You threw a little humor in there on an otherwise very touchy, very dramatic subject that is very, how would I want to put it? It's something that is very personal to so many. It's very personal to me. I grew up without a father. He was an alcoholic. He was an asshole. He just shit out of my mother all the time in front of me. I've been there, done that. I know what it is. But you managed to bring the little bit of humor in there to lighten it up just a little bit so that people weren't like, because if you're going to bring them down, what do you got to do? You got to bring them up again. And you did that. Thank you very much.
Can I, 1 second, sorry. My only one for today. I have to add this too. I noticed you put limitations, and you were very strict with what you were, like, you opened the door and you showed us and you shared, and there were things you were not going to share, and you hit those boundaries and you went on and you did not. And I really appreciate somebody that, like, the fact that you put those boundaries, you stuck to those boundaries, shared the story, and yet there were pieces that you're like, I'm keeping to myself. It's not coming out here. And that's awesome. That's really difficult to do, actually. So great job.
And then real quick, this is my suggestion. We are at halfway point right now. We're looking at, what time is it? We're at 2:00.